Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to dive into a React hook that's often misunderstood called useMemo. And by the end of this video, you're going to feel confident on how to use it and when to use it throughout your app. My name is Hakeem and I'm a Web3 engineer working for eBay. My mission is to help you master Web3 development so you can be financially free. Okay, so first of all, let's go over React real quick. Now, React is a popular JavaScript library for building user interfaces, and it continues to dominate the marketplace, especially when it comes to Web3 development. And React also uses the concept of components, which are individual parts of an application. So you have buttons, you have nav bars, you have navigation links. All these individual parts of an application are what we call components. And each component can have state or not have state. Now, state is a built-in React object that simply tracks the progress of a given component, and these values are maintained every time the component re-renders. Now, React also uses the concept of hooks. Now, hooks are reusable pieces of code that rapidly speed up development and can be applied anywhere. For example, if I just head over to my YouTube real quick. That. So on YouTube, right, you have all these buttons and tabs here. So a hook would be used for this toggle here. So this nav bar toggle, or if you wanted to toggle to a different mode. So right now I'm on dark mode. If I want to go over to, there it is, to light theme, that's a toggle, and you can make a hook in React that you could create once and reuse it everywhere. Now, React has a unique built-in hook called useMemo. This is a unique hook that optimizes performance through what's called memoization or caching. Now, if a value is cached in memory, then React can fetch the cached value instead of recalculating or re-rendering that entire component. Let me show you what I mean. So on the left here, I have a simple React app that I've made, and we have this. So for now, I'll just focus on this count state variable here. I'm going to comment out this for now. Actually, I'll just leave it there. So we have this count state variable here. We have this time variable that's going to compare the time of which the component first rendered to when it got re-rendered. And then this heavy calculation. This heavy calculation is just mimicking a really long API call. In the case of Web3, like let's say you're going to fetch a user's Ethereum wallet balance, and it takes a while to go through all of that. So this is just a demo application. And then we're calling the function here. And this handle click is what this button is calling and what will cause a re-render of the application. So let me head over to the application itself. So we've got this button here and the other button, which we'll deal with in just a moment. If I open up the console, let me refresh it. Render time, okay. So right now, every time this component starts or renders, this heavy calculation is being called, and right now it takes 1 billion loops for this calculation to finish. Okay, so I'll just refresh the application and we can see the render time here has a second difference. Now this should be instant, right? You'd expect it to be instant. And in this scenario, we know why it's slow, because it's heavy calculation. In a real world application, you wouldn't just have a heavy calculation being called like this, but you may have it nested somewhere else. So the way to resolve this is to use the useMemo hook. And we want to cache the actual value. So if I wrap this around here, right, save it. Now this, as you can see, there's still a 1 second delay on the first render. But if I now re-render the application by setting the count variable, oops, there we go, it's instantaneous. because this gets called only one time. So now this function only gets called once as opposed to after every single render. So the second use case for useMemo would be, let me just comment this out so it doesn't slow down the app. When you're dealing with objects and arrays. So objects and arrays in JavaScript are stored as reference values instead of actual values like here. So a number, string, or boolean, for example, are stored as their actual values, whereas objects are just references. Now, every time the component renders or re-renders, this object is recreated again. And so this is not the same as it was last re-render. And I'll demonstrate this now. So if I just uncomment this useEffect hook, so this useEffect will trigger the code in here every time the theme object changes. Now, if I click on the button that increments count, right, this will cause a re-render. Let me just save. So let me just clear the console actually. So count, count, count. As you can see, the new theme is being console logged every single time, even though the theme object itself doesn't actually change. The reason for this is, as I said, the referential equality problem, and useEffect doesn't handle this. So to fix this, it'll be a simple case of wrapping the actual object itself in a useMemo. So you'll be like useMemo. And then wrap it around. Oops. And then you want to pass through a dependency. In this case, it's the dark value. Let me just return the objects. And so here, the object is now being cached. So I've hit save. Let me now click on the set state for the count. See, now the object is not changing and the useEffect is working as intended. Obviously, if I change the actual dark state variable here, right, the object is changing because the dark variable is changing. It's going from white to black to white to black, right? So when the dark variable changes or the dark dependency changes, the object changes, and so therefore we get a re-render. That makes sense. But a lot of people get confused and expect the object to be the same. And as I said, this also applies to arrays as well. So useMemo caches the actual value, so the object's value. But there's another hook called useCallback that caches the function itself. And I'll dive into that in another video. So you've learned that useMemo is used to handle heavy calculations, to prevent them from constantly being called, and also to deal with objects and arrays. Thanks for watching. For more React tutorials, check out my video on React 101 that covers the concepts of lifecycle hooks and reusable components.